Top 10 Interesting Facts about Rock Paper Scissors. Rock Paper Scissors is a fascinating and ancient game that is played by millions of people throughout the world. It is well known for being used to settle minor disputes, but it also represents key game theory principles. Most people don't realize it, yet few games are as popular or have such a distinct history as this one. So here are 10 interesting rock paper scissors facts for you. Number 10. A game by any other name. The most common name for rock paper scissors in Northern California is Rochambeau. No one knows, however, where the word Rochambeau came from. Many people believe it was named after the Comte de Rochambeau, a French aristocrat who was featured in the musical Hamilton and played a part in the American Revolutionary War. Despite the fact that legend has it that he played the game, evidence shows that it was not well recognized in America at the time. The word Rochambeau was first mentioned in Oakland, California-based book The Handbook for Recreational Leaders. We can only speculate on the origin of the terms because they appear to have no meaning in any language. Many people assume the moniker is a transliteration of the game's Japanese name John Kenpon as a fictional character created by John Kenpon. Because of the large East Asian community in that area of the United States, children may be familiar with the Japanese name. Rochambeau may have become a household name as a result of the emphasis on Revolutionary War history in schools. In some way they were entwined, giving rise to a new term for rock paper scissors in this place. That is at the very least the greatest theory anyone can come up with. Number 9. According to the judge's order. When two lawyers couldn't agree on where a witness deposition should be held, Judge Gregory Presnell couldn't stand it any longer. Play a game of rock paper scissors, he told them. He chose the steps of the Tampa Federal Courthouse to avoid yet another debate over the game's location. Matti Lesham, co-commissioner of the USA Rock Paper Scissors League, was in charge of the game, which sounded as absurd as it sounded. He reasoned that both lawyers would select paper since they deal with so much paper. Unfortunately, rather than face the battle, the lawyers preferred to settle the lawsuit in a different way. It did, however, set an unique precedent for dealing with problems through children's activities. Number 8. An art deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Sotheby's and Christie's form a duopoly in the auctioneering business, competing for control of the most important art auctions. When the electronics business Maspro Denko Corporation decided to sell off a collection of its artwork, the deal was worth roughly $20 million. The company's president Takashi Hashiyama made the remarkable decision to hand over ownership to the company that won a game of rock paper scissors. He simply stated, "I feel this is the best technique to choose between two equally wonderful items." Christie's president took the issue seriously and tried to comprehend the psychology of the game. She eventually chose to listen to the advice of 11-year-old twins Alice and Flora McLean, daughters of Christie's international director of Impressionist and Modern Art. "Rock is just too evident," they replied, preferring scissors over paper. When asked what they would do if the other team also played scissors, they simply said, "Play scissors again," expecting the other team would switch to paper. Sotheby's had no strategy since they believed the game would be decided solely by chance. Rather than making motions, both sides were asked to write their choices down in the room. As predicted by the twins, Sotheby's went for paper and Christie's won the auction by sticking to scissors. Later that year, Alice McLean was featured alongside a future Pope and Bill Clinton in Time magazine's Quotes of the Week section with the wise words, "Everybody knows you always start with scissors." Number 7. It's not as unpredictable as you think. A group of Chinese universities conducted extensive research on the game and its relevance to human decision-making. They were able to come up with some successful strategies. We have a tendency to stick with decisions that have shown to be successful and avoid those that have not. As a result, in many rounds the best strategy is to play based on the opposing player's previous move. If they've just won, switch to whatever would be better than their prior action. If they lose, they are more likely to switch. Toss the shape that their previous move would have beaten. The authors refer to this as the win, stay, lose shift method. Other considerations to consider are that rock is preferred by both men and newcomers, and paper is a significantly less popular option than the other two. Although it may appear to be a coin flip, people's predictability and suggestibility can help you lessen your reliance on chance if you can accurately predict your opponent's movements. Unless you're competing against someone who hasn't heard of the study, none of this works. If they have, you're in for a tougher intellectual battle. Number 6. Koreans like to play games that have been improved. The game is quite popular in Korea and some amazing new additions have been made. Muk Zzippa is a game that starts with the classic rock paper scissors. This regular match determines who attacks first in Muk Zzippa. The attacker must next attempt to get the opposing player to match the sign that they have screamed and flashed. If they win, they attack again. If they lose, the other player becomes the attacker and the attacker wins the game if their attacks are similar. A version called Hana P Paegi involves chanting a rhyme before holding out two symbols. Following that, each player selects one of the two to compete against. In the Philippines, a rhymed variation known as Jack and Poy is also popular. A 4-line song is recited with a game at the end of each line. The winner is the one who has the most victories at the end of the game. In the game, several symbols can be utilized, such as a bird substituting scissors made by bringing 5 fingers of one hand together into a beak. By consuming it, this defeats stone and defeats water. Water defeats stone by eroding it. This makes a lot more sense than banging paper on a stone. If none of them appeal to you, try Sheldon Cooper's Rock Paper Scissors Lizard Spock from The Big Bang Theory. Number 5. There are tournaments held there. In 1995, when the internet was just getting established, Doug and Gary Walker had the idea to create a website. They were at a loss for what to write about for a web page. However, they liked to play rock paper scissors in their garage while shouting trash talk at each other, so it felt natural to bring it up. By establishing fake traditions and legends for the site, they unintentionally created a new viral hit. It all began off as a joke. Over the next decade, the game's popularity soared, culminating in the World Rock Paper Scissors Championships. Microsoft and Yahoo sponsored the competition, and the winner got a $10,000 cash award. In order to establish a vibrant culture around a nostalgic game, people would dress up in extravagant costumes and assume weird aliases. Even though no one ever won more than once, there was a distinct gradation in competence. Despite the fact that the game's popularity has waned in recent years, Doug and Gary Walker remain experts in the field, and the website WRPSA.com is still dedicated to informing fans and sponsoring tournaments. Number 4. It's a classic game. This game, which featured a frog, caterpillar and snake, was first documented in China during the Han period. Sansakumi Ken, which means 3 who are afraid of each other, is a common motif in Japanese history. It is thought that the game originated in China and then spread to Japan. In the Japanese version, the game was mistranslated as frog, snail and snake. Jan Ken, which uses the signs we are acquainted with today, evolved from this. It's unknown how it came to be played in the United States, but by the early 20th century it appears to have been well known in the country. The rules of John Ken Pon, as it was then known, were explained in a 1932 story in the New York Times. Number 3. You can practice with a robot. Humans are notoriously bad at being random, even when they believe they are. Affinity can demonstrate how machine learning works by identifying and exploiting patterns in your playing style. It won't win every game, but it will almost surely exceed chance, particularly as more rounds are played. You may test it out for yourself on the Affinity website. This computer learning system employs many of the techniques discussed in this article, but it can do so more precisely since it keeps and analyzes a complete dataset of every decision you make. Even if you try to be as random as possible, your prior selections will ensure that it is never fully random, and Affinity's win percentage will constantly climb. Number 2. It's a game of rock, paper, scissors with the cops. 3 police officers were arrested in Nook, Texas after enabling an underage adolescent drinker to beat them in a game of rock, paper, scissors to avoid a penalty. Unfortunately, the game and stakes were taped and the film went viral. They had been hired to work security at Chillfest, but they were no longer allowed to do so. Officers can choose to issue a ticket based on their findings. Because they were at a festival, they were told to stay in uniform and act appropriately. According to Burleson County Constable Dennis Gause, playing a game to see if a citation or warning is issued does not come under professional conduct. Number 1. Chimps are capable of playing rock, paper, scissors. It's not only us who can play rock, paper, scissors. Chimps can play at a level comparable to a 4-year-old child. All chimps can learn to this level according to research undertaken at universities in Japan and China, albeit at a slower rate than a human child. It takes the most time to figure out the final pairing after understanding everything else about the game. This demonstrates that the circular aspect of the game is causing them the most trouble. On the other hand, the fact that they finally grasp the circular thinking that underpins the game's rules gives scientists a deeper knowledge of their minds. The authors of the study believe that it will encourage more research in this field.